Hello fantastic people, I hope you are doing great. Today we will learn how to turn this into this. So the first thing to do is to install the universal rendering pipeline. You go to Window, Package Manager. Here probably it will be set to in project, so you have to change it to Unity registry. Then you search for universal rendering pipeline. And then you will have here, instead of the remove button, install button. You click it, and within a minute or two you should have everything installed. After that there will be a little bit of setup that you will have to do. So first I like to create a separate folder for all the stuff related to URP, so here it is. Then first you go to create, rendering, universal rendering pipeline, and create the pipeline asset. So here we have URP asset. Then it automatically creates the 3D URP renderer. Because we want to work with 2D, we basically just delete it. Now we go again to create, rendering, universal rendering pipeline, and 2D renderer. 2D URP renderer. Awesome. Now in the URP asset there is a field for renderer. We select our 2D renderer, and here we are done. Now we have to go to Edit, Project Settings, and there are two places where we have to change the rendering. So if here in the Quality section we have this rendering place where we select the render pipeline asset. We select here our URP asset, and then similar thing in the graphics section. So here we have the render pipeline asset input. Here we select it as well. And I think that's it here. Then everything turned black for me. For you, not yet. You will have to do one extra thing here. You go to Edit, Render Pipeline, Universal Render Pipeline, 2D Renderer, and Upgrade Send to 2D Renderer. This will convert the materials and they will react to 2D light. So the reason everything is black is because there is no light in the sun. So first thing I will do is just go to Light, 2D, and create global light. Awesome. In order to be able to use all of those beautiful effects that you've seen before, we have to enable the post-processing. The first step will be to enable post-processing on the camera. So here I click on the main camera, I have the camera component open and check the post-processing checkbox. Done. Then we have to create a global volume. Yes, I see I already have one. Let me delete it. You click the right mouse button, go to volume and global volume. Now the most important part here is this profile. So I just click new, and now a lot of new settings or rather overrides are available for me. Just to give you like brief view of what you can do simply with just the overrides on the profile. This is the scene that we start with, and here are just literally two effects added on top of that. So yeah, it's pretty powerful. Let's go back to the clear one and start setting up the overrides. So the first one is in the post-processing is bloom, and this is probably the most used setting of all of them. We need to enable threshold, intensity, scatter, and tint. Basically threshold is how quickly something will start kind of emitting light. Intensity is how intense the light will be. Then we have scatter, it kind of shows how, like, changes how much the light spreads. You will see that in a second. And then tint, obviously the color of that bloom. So first we can increase the intensity to something like maybe 10. You see that the light elements already start glowing. And you see the threshold is what controls at what point they start glowing. So if I lower the threshold, everything starts glowing earlier, but we don't want to go a little overboard with that. I think 0.9 or at this point I think 0.9 is the good value. Then scatter, you see how big difference it does. It's literally like a radius of the light. So I think this value is pretty okay, and then let's change it, because we are doing night scene, to something a little bit bluish to add that kind of magical nightish glow to it. Ooh, this looks also nice. Yeah, so you see you can experiment different colors and give different vibes. So you see, for example, red or like orange would be great for dungeons and things. Then green gives that toxic vibe, and you see light blue is like ice thing, and here we have this kind of magical feeling. So let's go with something like that. Oh yes, I like that. Awesome. And then the second thing I want to add is vignette. Vignette is basically like a soft border around the camera. So I want it to be black around the center, and oh, you see how much it changes, and I think 0.3 or maybe even 0.4 will do big difference. Yes, so you see this is what we've done literally with settings. We didn't add any extra lights, we didn't do any, add any particle effects or anything like that, and here we already have a huge difference. Now it's time to add moon. We go to scene. In the sprites I already have a moon sprite. You can create one just by going to create, 2D, sprites and circle, and this will literally create the same white circle I used. I drag and drop it into the scene and adjust its scale. Awesome. Now I send it to the background sorting layer, and as you see I have already 5 sorting layers created for me. You usually start just with the default, so you will have to create some going by the add sorting layers, and obviously just remember you can rearrange them, so this is pretty handy. That's how I put the default in the middle. Now yes, we have sorting layers, and there is one more important thing about them, and lights in URP. Basically, whenever you have a light, it has target sorting layers, and those layers are literally only the ones that you select here are affected by this particular light. So for example, if I change the intensity to 0.2, and then you see just this one sprite in the middle changed its brightness. That's because that's the only sprite that is in this layer. So because I want the global light to affect everything, I change the sorting layers to all. Now it suddenly became ugly. We'll fix that with light, so light and different lights, so don't worry about that. We can change the color also to something bluish, and suddenly we see that it's a little bit too low. Yes, so I think that will do it for now. We'll probably have to adjust it in a second, but that's a good starting point. Now we have our circle. Let's rename it to moon, and let's fix it. We can add 2D light to it. I will use the point light, make it affect just the 2 background layers, and let's change its outer radius. Beautiful, I like it. So I think this will be it for the moon. Now there is small adjustment I want to make to the mountains in the background. Yeah, I know, you cannot even see that there are mountains. So that's the issue. Here I have a big sprite like that. Let's move it to the side. Maybe let's duplicate it and move it also to the other side, and then lower it a little bit. We can actually, I think, even make it a little bit smaller, so something like 0.75. Yeah, I think that will do it. Awesome. We can lower this one, copy paste it, then let's put it over here, and then we can move it even further. Awesome. Now let's group them together. Mountains. Awesome. And what I will do now, because you see the colors are pretty dark, so all the edges of trees and the mountains kind of collapse into one shape and it doesn't look too attractive. So what I will do, I will create some like edge lights. You will see what I mean in a second. Basically I will grab those ones, create another point light, move it up and make it affect the background layer. So you see straight away it affects the tree. Now I just have to make sure that all the trees are in the right sorting layer. So yes, all the trees, even the back ones, are in the background, and now I want all the mountains to be in the background back, so behind the trees. Now I look for the light. Awesome, I can increase its intensity, maybe its radius, and start copying and pasting those lines and just to make a nice edge around the tree. So here I will speed it up a little bit so you don't have to, see slowly how I do it. Now I see that everything is a little bit too light, so let me just slightly decrease the intensity of the global light. Awesome, that will do it. Now let's add light to the water. For the water light, I will use a special type of light. So water, maybe wrapper, to actually store the water for the animation later and all the lights under it. So here in lights we have something called freeform light, and this is literally, let's first change it to foreground front. Let's make sure that the water is now it's in the foreground, so let's change the light to the foreground, and you see we have this square here. That's because we can literally manually adjust its shape. So let's make it nice, covering all the water we have. It can go a little bit, around, like it doesn't have to cover it perfectly because that's the only object in this area that is affected by this light. So here, yeah, it's a little bit too bright, not maybe too bright, but what is happening, the scatter is a little bit too big. So let's adjust it. Maybe let's first try with settings of the light, especially with the intensity. Yeah, I think this will do it, but I still think we need to adjust the scatter on the global volume. So let's make it a little bit smaller. So yes, now it looks a little bit better. Let's check it in the game view. Beautiful. So now let's take care about our ground. I will add a 2D freeform light to it and modify its shape to roughly follow the shape of the ground. Awesome. Now we'll change its target sorting layers from default to the background ones, and now increase fall off like a lot, then change the color to yellow, and we're almost there. We can just adjust this one, maybe intensity a little bit. Awesome. I think this actually could work also for the edge lights very nicely. So yes, now we'll need another light of this shape, but affecting the default. This one can be to keep the nightish feeling a little bit blue, and we can just decrease the intensity and maybe lower the light a little bit. Let's see how it goes. Oh, let's just check how it will look like if we do that. Here and then change follow. Oh, nice. Something like that. I really like it. Nice. So I think we have all the lights set up. We can just add some, you know, like there are always ways to make it better. I think one of the things that comes to my mind is we could add some point lights to the water, affecting the default layer and the background. Just to kind of show that something interesting is happening in the water. So we can grab this one, move it here, make it bigger, maybe a little bit blue. Then another one, oops, that's this one, over here, then maybe a little bit different color, here, down, and you see suddenly a lot of things are happening and it looks interesting. The only thing, yeah, I see here is a lot happening. But it will be covered a little bit with the particle effects, but I think still we could try to fix the light. So I think if we decrease the intensity a little bit, that becomes much better. Or maybe we could even exactly resign from the trees in the background far away, and suddenly it looks much nicer. Awesome. So let's add the animations. First, I click on the water wrapper, animation, create, and you see I already have 2 animations, so I'm just creating another version of it, water 1. And now, once again, that's very important, the animator has to be on the water wrapper, and then we click on the water, and this is the object will be changing the position of. I click here on the red button to start recording movement, and I think I'm ready to go. Now, in the position, I change it very slightly, something like 0.1, move it to the middle of the animation, minus 0.1, and then I copy the first frame and paste it at the end. Now, 1 second for that will be a little bit too quick. I think for like subtle water movement, 5 seconds should be fine. You see it's still pretty quick, so I will even change it maybe to 8. Yep, looks much better. So first animation done. Now we take first tree in the front, whichever, this will work. We go again, animation, create, tree 1, and we do similar thing just with the rotation. So I record button, now we rotate the tree a little bit in the z-axis, 1 degree should be fine. Then we go to -1, and then at the end again to 1. Now this once again will be too quick for this type of animation, but the movement is pretty nice, so we can move it to 5 seconds. Awesome. Awesome, that will work. Now, because we don't want to add it to each single tree separately, what we can do is, you see the animator on that one is called tree 3, so that's this one. I can select all other trees and then just drag and drop the animator here. Now when I start the scan, all of the trees are nicely animated. The only thing that kind of doesn't let me go is that they all move in the same direction at the same time. So I created a small script that randomized the initial like state of the or initial frame of the animation. Let's have a look at it. It's extremely simple script. It's called start animation at random frame, and the only thing it does, it has the start method in which first it gets the animator from the game object, gets the information about the current animation state. So it's literally animator.getCurrentAnimator state info with the layer index 0, and then we literally play the same animation at the layer 0, so the same layers here, with the random, like literally place random frame between 0 and 1. 0 and 1 is because the time is, as you see, normalized, so basically 0 is the beginning of the animation, 1 is end of the animation. As simple as that. So the only thing I have to do now is to just select all the trees. No, they got unselected. Terrible. So I get the script, drag and drop it on all of them, and now they should swing in different directions. Beautiful. So at this moment, the only things that are left are the particle effects, stars, and some, like, you know, the lightbugs around the grass. Okay, so let's create the stars. First, let's create material. I already have one, but let's create it together. So create material, stars, new. We need to change the shader to universal render pipeline, particles, lit. In the base map, I select my star sprite. It's very simple, you see, very ugly, very simple, but it will work beautifully. Now, you see it shows as a white square. I need to change the surface type to transparent. And now it kind of uses the transparency of the image. And I think here it's all. So it's very simple material. Now let's create the particle effect. So let's just collapse everything and create the effects particle system and call it stars. First of all, we want to increase the duration, so I think 8 will be alright. The start lifetime, we want to be random between two constants, between 5 and 8, so the stars will have different lifetime. We want the speed to be 0, then the size, something small, so again between two random constants, maybe 0.2 and 0.5. Sorry, 0.5. Just to see how this will look, let's just move down to the renderer, and here let's select our new material. Now, in the shape, we change it from cone to box. Let's reset the transform, and now modify in the shape the scale to something like 25 maybe. Is it covering everything? Yes, and maybe 20. I will need a little bit less, so even 10, and then just bring it up a little bit. Awesome. We are almost done. What we have to do now is to go to size over lifetime. Awesome. And just change the curve. So we can first start with the straight curve. We add a keyframe at the very middle, and then drag both sides to the bottom. So it will just appear and disappear completely. Now let's in the renderer section change the sorting layer to background back, and -5 just to make sure it is behind everything. And I think, let's have a look how they will look like. Yep, one more setting we need to enable. Okay, that's still before the mountains, and the stars are a little bit too big. So I have missed something. Render, sorting layer. Oh, of course, because shadow bias. Now, it's perfect. The last thing we want to do is to enable the pre-worm. So this way, whenever this descent starts, the stars will be already in place. Awesome. Now let's add a little bit of the Lightbugs. Let's first add new particle system, call it Lightbugs. Now go to shape, once again change it to box. Let's have a look at the transform, how does it look like? Yep, let's reset it, bring it up a little bit. Now the size. We want them to be more or less the same but pretty small. So we look at the start size between two constants, 0, 1, 0, 2. Yep, that will do it. Then start speed. Let's do something like 1, and then adjust the rotation for them to go up. Awesome. I think this is a little bit too quick, so maybe 0.5, still too quick, maybe 0.2. Yep, that will do, but we'll have to extend their life. So I think 8 will do it. Now let's increase the X scale of the box. Fantastic, 4 will do it. Then there is a little bit too many of them, so let's change it to 5, maybe to 3. Yep, emissions rate over time 3 is a good choice. Now, what we want is to change the velocity over lifetime, so we want them to move to the left or to the right a little bit. So here again, in the linear section, we can change it to random between two constants as well, and in X we want to, for example, -2 to minus 0.2 to 0.2, and that looks already much better. Now we want to decrease their size over time, and we do it in the size over lifetime, and I think this curve will be perfect for that. Now we can change their color to yellow. This doesn't look that nice, so what we can do instead, let's keep them white and create our own material for them. So create material, Lightbugs, again, universal render pipeline, particles, lit. We change the shape to something nice. It could be regular box, but I think the circle should be fine. Then we just change the surface type to transparent, and Lightbugs, renderer, and again in the material section we bring our new material, and this looks much nicer already. Now we don't want them to be white, we want them to be yellow, so we adjust the material color. Now you may be wondering why I'm putting yellow. So the simplest way to put it, the colors on the opposite sides of the wheel actually look very nice together. So you see the yellow particles look very nice on the bluish background. So now we have the particles, we can move them to the background, order in layer 5, so we want them to be in front of the trees, and we can duplicate them some few times. So one here, and maybe one here. They are a little bit too big, the same as stars, by the way. So let's adjust their size. So we select all of them, 0.05, 0.1, and then let's also adjust the size of the stars, so maybe 0.3. And maybe also let's pre-warm them. And this is perfect. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Have a fantastic day. Love you and bye bye.